you read this book and you realize, wow, so
Yeah,
much of this is out of my control to some degree. There are things I can
right.
control, there are things I can't. And, I think that's a good lesson, if nothing else, because I think people get really down on themselves that they should know all this stuff and they should be able to make, you know, there's finances a success, but he really does also lean into the fact that there's a level of risk and luck.
Welcome to Finance for Physicians, the show where we help physicians like you use money as a tool to live a great life. I'm your host, Daniel Wrenne, and I've spent the last decade advising physicians on their personal finances, with the mission to help them understand that taking control of their finances now means creating a future where they can practice medicine where, when, and how long they want to. Theresa, how's it going?
Hi, doing well.
Well, welcome to the podcast. This is your
Thank you.
first appearance, right?
It is. I'm usually behind the scenes. So
Teresa's, yes. So for those listening, Teresa works a lot behind the scenes with helping produce and put the podcast out. So she's very familiar with it, and also one of our CFPs on board, but
mhm.
more importantly is Chief Marketing Officer. So with the planning business. And so we're excited. We're going to be talking about some of the books and podcasts that our financial planners have recommended over the years, and we're gonna kind of hit the high points of each of these, but we'll also talk about some of the overarching themes, which I think it's going to be interesting because we're a little bit of a unique bunch in that we're not like your typical personal finance geeks. I mean, we kind of are personal finance geeks as financial planners, but we're also like our job is to work with people one on one and help them take action with their money. So I would say we definitely come from a unique perspective when it comes to looking at personal finance books.
Totally. Yeah. So last year, I guess this time last year, I asked the team to kind of gather up what they would recommend to our planning audience about, book wise, kind of what books, not only did they read at some point during their life or their career that kind of really shaped how they thought about personal finance. So what's kind of cool too this year is a couple of the authors that were highlighted last year have come out with new books. So I added them to the list this year because I think if you like the first book, you're going to like the second. So yeah, it's a collective. I mean, it's a eclectic, I should say, list of books, but there are some themes that we'll talk about throughout.
Yeah, so I guess the first book on the list is one that the author had a new book come out. So this came from Jackie, right?
Yeah, so it's Nick Majuli. He is in the wealth management space. So he actually, I believe he's a partner in a wealth management firm and also has a blog, Dollars and Cents, and sends out a newsletter, I think weekly. And so he's really in this space. He had a book that came out, I think, a few years ago, Just Keep Buying. And Jackie Griggs, who is a financial planner here and our director of investing, really, brought this book to our attention and put it on the list. And I think for her, it's just a good fundamental answer the questions people have that we keep hearing a lot of. How much lifestyle creep is okay when your income goes up, and should you rent or should you buy? So I too have read this book. He's got a really conversational way of talking about things. You can tell he's a blogger, so that's a pretty good read. And then the book that just came out this year is The Wealth Ladder. And this one, I think, has some good hooks. I can see why it has really taken off in the personal finance space, because it really talks about wealth and kind of this idea of growing your wealth as a ladder. And there are different rungs to the ladder, and each rung comes with a certain set of things to be thinking about. So under $100,000 is survival mode, and then you move up from like the second rung of the ladder, which is 100,000 to 1 million. And with each of the rungs on the ladder comes kind of more financial flexibility, which makes sense. And he sets up like a really good framework to think about, when you're in the $1 million plus, you can start not worrying so much about smaller discretionary spending, like going out to dinner. And, when you move up another rung, it's more of like you don't have to worry so much about things like travel, like you can do more of it and, housing and those types of things. So
Mhm.
it's also, I think, kind of interesting, Daniel, because it really talks about kind of, you may not want to go all the way up the wealth ladder. You may want to stop at some point. And I think makes a good case for why, you shouldn't always aspire to want more. So it's a good read and it's a quick read.
Yeah, so I think we're already starting to hit on some of the overarching themes that we'll see in a lot of these books. So for example, like money in itself doesn't necessarily directly translate to happiness and life satisfaction.
Right.
Um, Just Keep Buying is an interesting title. I think what he meant was possibly like I haven't read this book myself, but
Okay. I can tell, I think
is it
it's about investing.
investing?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm like. Not let's not just keep spending, but
Yeah, yeah. No,
it's
and again, it's like one of those titles that makes you think a little, but it's really this
right.
idea that no matter what's going on in the market, even if you think the market's at an all-time high, which it often is, keep on investing. That's in the long run, you'll come out ahead, is essentially the message there.
Right, which is a huge emphasis of ours is like it's the temptation is to find the perfect time to invest or like wait till, you know, timing the market. Like I'm gonna wait
Mhm.
till this to invest. But I think the just keep buying thing implies like dollar cost averaging. Like let's just get the money going into the investments and then continue to do it, which is a super important strategy.
Totally. So next on the list, we've got this podcast that Dylan on our team recommended. I have not listened to it personally, but it's called The Money Guy Show,
Yep.
and it's hosted by Brian Preston and Bo Hansen.
Yep.
Uh,
I've hung out with these guys
oh
before
yeah,
at a
cool.
conference, probably at FinCon, which
Okay,
Heather's
yeah,
Teresa's been to
yeah,
FinCon several times,
yep,
and so they're very they're fun guys. I mean, they're
yeah.
good guys. And I had listened to their podcast a way long time ago.
Okay,
Um, so they have a good philosophy. Like they have, it's kind of I guess Dave Ramsey-esque, but more of a financial planner version of Dave Ramsey.
yeah, yeah. So Dylan really likes that. It sounds like they really take the time to explain some pretty complicated financial planning topics and make them really relatable. And also, I think they do the Ramsey thing where they do a lot of interviews with individuals and walk through their personal financial questions. So yeah, that's a great format. I think people because you can kind of see yourselves in the guests.
Yep.
So yeah. All right, moving on to the next one.
Yeah. Richest Man in Babylon. Jeff, who's been on the podcast many times, recommended this book. And I think this is one of those. I was telling Teresa before we started, I'm almost positive I've read this a way long time ago. If not, I've seen summaries of it many times and I've heard the title 1,000 times.
Hmm.
And it's one of those like foundational money philosophy kind of books that people typically recommend. I would the things that it suggests are pretty solid. I don't think anything in the lessons that they teach, I would disagree with. It's kind of general, but that's good for a entry level finance book.
Yeah.
So like some of the lessons. So it's organized by like key lessons. So some of the big lessons this book goes through: pay yourself first, which would be like, um, save first, spend the remainder. This also is an old book. I think this book was
Yeah.
written a really long time ago. So the one, and that is a great foundational lesson. Now, the
Mhm.
one problem with that these days, probably since this book has been written, is it's become more difficult to save first and spend the rest because of how credit cards work. It's now really easy to spend more than the rest and then end up eating into your
Mhm.
saving first. So you have to be careful to pay yourself first and do number two. Like you can't just get by with number one. And I think, he was kind of sensing that out as well as you wrote it. So the second one is control your expenses. So you have to do that one too. Otherwise, especially nowadays, if your expenses get out of hand, they're going to eat into your ability to pay yourself first. And then make your money work for you is number three. So put the money to work by investing. Number four is protect your capital, which, avoid like super speculative, get rich quick, like shiny object investments. And then number five is seek wise counsel. So there's all kinds of people. I mean, there's no way you're the smartest person about, anything really, but like money, you can always find people that have more experience. Maybe it's not even like book smart, but like life smart or like wisdom. You can always find people around you or hire people even like a financial planner to
Hmm.
help you navigate this stuff that have a lot more experience and potentially a lot more competence. And then number six is own your home. That that one I'm a little like less in agreement with. Always, I think that's a good general suggestion, but there's times when you don't need to own your home. And then number seven, increase your ability to earn. Those are the big lessons, takeaways from this book. So I think it's just, I guess it's probably a lot like the any of these foundational finance books. It's like, what are the key habits and behaviors you need to establish so that you
Yeah.
can build wealth?
But yeah, you're right. This book was came out in 1926, so
Oh my
pre-stock market
goodness.
crash. Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
knew it was
cool.
old.
I mean,
That's
these are fundamentals.
that's like Great Depression.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I published this last year, we included a fun fact that these parables were distributed as pamphlets to US banking insurance customers because they were so well received by the public. So yeah,
It's
it's around.
funny how much of that's pretty much none of this hadn't changed. These are like
Right.
evergreen lessons.
Yep, totally. So yeah, that wins for the most ancient book on the
Wow.
list, almost 100 years old. So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. All right, so moving along, the next one we have is another podcast. This comes from Heather Lavallo, one of the financial planners you've heard from on the podcast. I, again, have not listened to this yet, but the host is definitely somebody who, Carl Richards, is very well known in the space, has some great books too. And it sounds like this podcast really is just an ability, his gets his network of people together to kind of talk through kind of the more, I guess, taboo topics around money and get into the feels about money and less about
Mhm.
technical things. So I think it's always kind of nice to step back and think more about the bigger picture issues sometimes than the true technical stuff. And it seems like this podcast really emphasizes that. So that's cool.
Yeah, I've actually met Carl Richards as well,
Uh-huh.
and I remember I he used to live in Salt or Park City, Utah, and I go skiing there a lot. And so at one point, I really like him. He's a great guy, and he's very behavioral finance focused.
Hmm.
He's
Yep.
way into like the behaviors more than anybody I know.
Yeah.
And so I had emailed him. The last time I talked to him, I emailed him because I was going to Park City and I can't remember. I wanted to meet him for some reason,
Yeah.
but he had moved to New Zealand.
Oh,
So he doesn't live in Park City anymore.
no.
He went to New Zealand. I don't know if he still
Wow.
lives in New Zealand, but last I
Pretty
talked to him,
cool.
he moved to New Zealand and he's still doing all this personal finance,
Yeah.
behavioral finance content. So
Oh, interesting.
all of his stuff, I've never read or consumed any of his stuff that wasn't good.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to this particular podcast, but I listened
Right.
to some of his others.
Yeah. Great.
So
All right. So the next, another classic on the list, uh, Jen Quire, she's got the Millionaire Next Door.
yeah, I think this mixes in maybe a little bit more. Um, I don't know. It's a lot like The Richest Man in Babylon, but it's more of a case study, I guess. So this book, if you haven't read it, it like the who's the author? Is it Stanley? I can't
It's
remember.
yeah, Stanley and William. Danko.
I've
John
actually met,
Thomas Stanley and William Danko.
okay. I think I've met his daughter actually. This is funny. I'm like 70s.
Memory
Um,
lane, yeah.
Millionaire Next Door's daughter. Because I think she continued on some of his stuff.
Oh,
But anyway, I think the author was more into the research part. Like he researched these millionaires. They were like
hmm.
the millionaire next door that nobody really realized even that they were a millionaire. And I think this also is a pretty old book. And so maybe a millionaire when this was done was different than what it is today. It might be
Yeah,
like a 5 millionaire or something like that.
right.
When was it written?
I'm right. I'm looking that up right now.
I think it might have, it's definitely not in the past 30 or 40 years.
Well,
Uh,
okay.
The first version.
First published in 1996.
Okay. Well, what is that?
Yeah, it was
30
an
years
ancient
ago?
history.
30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
96. So,
yeah.
well, 30 years is a long time.
I know.
So it doesn't feel like it because I was, you
I
know,
know. I could read it
11.
when it came out. Yeah,
But anyway, 1996. So anyway, either way, a millionaire back then
right.
is probably like, well, at least a multimillionaire now.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, and I think his research was done in the years before then, and he kind of pulled it together in the book. But basically, it's about like the observations they found, the similarities of these like millionaires next door, like what were the similarities with them. So some
Hmm.
of the themes that came out of this book were like wealth doesn't necessarily translate well to income. A lot of times the high earners spend a ton and don't save
Right.
very well. Maybe they drive
Yeah.
fancy cars, but that doesn't mean that they're wealthy.
Right.
Living below their means is a big deal. A lot of the millionaire next door types were like super savers, meaning they like save, 30+% of their income.
Hmm.
And so the high savings rate's a big part of it. They've typically built wealth slowly over long periods of time and not quick hitters like lottery or like even, you know, uh, big stock pick or like a business home run. That's not how it works typically. It's more of I save 40% of my income for 30 years.
Yeah.
Um, and then a lot of them are self-made as opposed to inherited.
Hmm.
Um, avoid status consumption is another one. So like, that kind of ties in with the, living below your means. Um, and then financial independence over display. And then financial responsibility is a big part of it. So I think this is probably a little bit lean towards more the frugal emphasis on, um, I think of the millionaire next door as like the person you don't realize is pretty wealthy.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe they're like doesn't matter necessarily what their job is.
I'm assuming that that phrase was coined because of this book, The
Oh,
Millionaire.
for sure.
Because now that's just part of, yeah,
Right.
the phrase we use all the time.
Yeah, people say it all the time, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. I'm almost
Yeah.
positive
Yeah. Yeah.
it was. And so this
Dated
was a
back in 1996. Yep.
huge hit, and it's been. I'm sure it still sells a ton of copies.
I feel like it's one of the, when like, it was one of the first personal finance books, people would say is like, for the masses versus more like technical investing books. I think of it as kind of like maybe one of the beginnings of all of these like personal finance type
Yeah,
books.
and it's
Origin.
very foundational. It doesn't. I don't even think it gets into like investing.
Right.
Probably more psychology.
Yeah.
Um, and just yeah, it's just personal finance, like good habits in personal finance. And
Yeah,
it was one
totally.
of the early ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it's definitely one of I think most people have that on their list of, if you're in personal finance, of books that you would recommend there.
Let's take a quick break to talk about our firm, Wrenne Financial Planning. The goal of our podcast is to empower you to make better financial decisions. But sometimes the best financial decision you can make is to work with someone who understands your financial goals and has the expertise to keep you on track to reach them. That's where Wrenne Financial Planning comes in. We are a full service financial planning firm that works with over 400 physicians and their families across the country. We charge a transparent monthly flat fee for our services and offer virtual meetings you can take from anywhere. Best of all, you'll get to work with a team that specializes in working with physician families. So, whether you're starting out and wondering how you'll balance your student loan payments and saving for a home, or you are an established physician trying to figure out how to pay for your kids' college and how much you need to save to reach financial freedom, we can help. I'll put a link in the show notes to schedule a no obligation meeting with one of our certified financial planners. Wrenne Financial Planning LLC is a registered investment advisor. For more information about our firm, please visit wrennefinancial.com. That's WRENNE financial.com.
All right, so moving on, another podcast. This was actually a recommendation that I provided last year. It was the Marketplace podcast. The host is Kai Risdall. It's a public media radio program. I consume it via a podcast, but I think your local NPR station will play it too. It's Monday through Friday. It's 30 minutes. And what I really like about it is, we all have our kind of our socioeconomic bubbles. I'm over in the Boston area, and my economics is not the same as a soybean farmer in Iowa. And it's kind of hard sometimes to get a pulse of what's going on around the country. So they do a really good job in layman's terms of kind of both at a macro level. So like, if you're interested in what the interest rates and what the Fed's doing, they cover that, but they also really get into kind of the economics of, Main Street. So how are people doing in, how are small businesses doing in Oregon, that kind of thing. So it kind of gives you a map of what's going on a micro and a macro level. And they bring in a lot of different diverse voices to talk about kind of how to interpret what's going on in the headlines, when tariffs were out, when that first happened, they brought in a lot of different experts to talk about what the influences could be or not. So I feel like it's a pretty well balanced show, and it gives me kind of a perspective of what's going on, outside of my little socioeconomic bubble. So I really like that show, and I think it's well done.
Yeah,
Uh,
so kind of a Wall Street Journal like esque type. If you're gonna like your economics marketplace would be kind of like a more of a news-ish economics.
Yeah, totally. They kind of start with the news of the day, what's going on and kind of interpreting it and what does it really mean to a normal human versus just kind of on a on a bigger scale, like what does it mean to your personal finances? So I really appreciate that perspective, and I think it really just allows you to kind of understand what these headlines mean, kind of strip out some of the more, you know, I don't know, insinuate like the I don't know. Everything sounds scary when it comes out, and I think they do a good job of kind of explaining what the reality is and how it could affect you. So I like that. Um, yeah, and
Yep.
then so the next one is a book, and this again I think is on most people's top five list of books when it comes to personal finance, and it's relatively new. I want to say it's come out in the last 15, 20 years, but it's The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Daniel, have you read this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've
I
read it
think
three
it's I
times.
think it's I think it's very new. I think it's maybe in the past 5 years even.
Well, yeah, okay. All right, yeah. It is it's good. So it's written, Morgan has he was
2020.
2020. Okay. So wow, it's really okay, that's newer than I thought it was. But Morgan's got a background at the Wall Street Journal, the Motley Fool, so he knows how to write for consumers. And I really think this gets into the theme of some of the other podcasts and books we've highlighted, where it's not being the most brilliant person with money. It's more about the behavioral elements of it and how you actually have good habits around money, and that will take you farther, and it end up being a than having the greatest investments in the world. So yeah, it's just a great book. It's the one I recommend. My mom just asked me, just asked her what she wanted for Christmas, and she's like, "Why don't you get me some of your personal finance books?" And this is one of them that I'm going to be
Your
getting her.
mom wants to
Oh
read your
yeah,
personal finance books?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. It's also for the masses. Like I don't think anyone I think I could recommend it to pretty much anyone.
Yep.
And well, a lot of these we could recommend to anyone, but this is much more obviously focused on the psychology, the behavior around money, and everybody struggles with it. Like they're all things that people um, struggle with, and so
Yeah.
it would be helpful for pretty much everybody.
Yeah, and it doesn't pass judgment. I think you read this book and you realize, wow, so
Yeah,
much of this is out of my control to some degree. There are things I can
right.
control, there are things I can't. And, I think that's a good lesson, if nothing else, because I think people get really down on themselves that they should know all this stuff and they should be able to make, you know, there's finances a success, but he really does also lean into the fact that there's a level of risk and luck tied to a lot of the financial, stories you hear as big wins. There was definitely some risk and some luck involved. My
Mm.
favorite story about this book, though, mentioning the part about, recommending it to anyone. I have a friend who's really smart and she was really, was interested in learning more about personal finance. And I recommended this book for her. She went to the local library in Vermont, took it out, and within the first two chapters, I think there's a story about how a gentleman who was, I believe, a janitor ended up donating like millions of dollars to the local library. And people just didn't know it was the story of kind of that millionaire next door, where they didn't, he had these habits and investments and no one knew he was rich. Well, she finds out that the library actually that she took the book out from was the library that he donated that money to.
Huh.
Um,
That's crazy. Yeah, he's a good storyteller. So I think of all these, it's probably the most
yeah, narrative.
enjoyable
Yeah,
read.
totally.
Um, because of the stories, which
Yeah,
personal finance books can be really hard. Um, The Richest Man in Babylon is like parables, which are
yeah.
stories.
Short
So
stories,
it's
right?
kind of a story format, which helps. The Millionaire Next Door is kind of that way. It talks about the
Mhm.
research of people, but yeah, the Psychology of Money definitely, or Morgan Housel is definitely the best storyteller, I would say.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
He
more of
picked
it feels like an educational book, I guess. Like you feel like you're coming away like more knowledgeable about.
totally. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was thanks to this book too that I had kind of come up with investing in kind of individual securities. And he did such a good job of explaining the concept of the S&P, which, Standard and Poor's index that I think started in the 1950s, and, has just astronomically, it's grown by over 1,000% since its inception. But if you look at the individual companies that make up the S&P, like something like 80% of them are no longer in existence that started back, but the index itself has grown that much. And to me, that was like a light bulb moment where I was like, okay, I think I'm an index investor now.
Yeah.
So that was great. Yeah, and then also he came out with another book this year that I really enjoyed. It was The Art of Spending Money, and it's kind of that other side of the coin from we spend all this time talking about saving, but where should you be spending your money and how do you get the most satisfaction? I think is really the emphasis for him. From spending your money. And so some really good, if you're a parent, there's some good nuggets in there too about kind of how to think about money in your kids, and what's actually going to make a difference when it comes to, how they turn out as humans. So really recommend that book as well. It's a good one. All
Awesome.
right.
So, Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. Um,
Well,
I think I've read this. Or I've skimmed it.
yeah.
In fact, I think it's on my bookshelf somewhere. I don't see it right now, but it's a Nick Murray book, and this was Michael
Yeah,
recommended. Yeah.
Michael. Yeah.
Um, it's I guess it's probably a little bit of a different flavor than these. Well, it is similar in some ways, but um, it's probably a little more focused on investing,
Hmm.
and like emphasis on the long term. And so, yeah, some of the things you were just saying about what you took away from the psychology of money, I think this book would actually echo those things. It's like, how to take a long-term view instead of a short-term view, and how stocks perform versus bonds perform. It talks a lot about that, and how timing the market is you want to avoid timing the market.
Yeah.
So it hits a lot of the things we've already talked about, foundational stuff with personal finance. And then the one thing this book also talks about, which I think some of the others don't talk about, is this book talks about the value of working with a financial planner,
Hmm.
kind of as a third party facilitator to help guide you through all that. And so, that's I don't think any of the other books really hit on that,
Yeah.
except for
Yeah.
maybe Wise Counsel. Well, that was Richest Man in Babylon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Richest Man in Babylon
From the
talks about seek
1920s.
wise counsel in the
Yes.
1920s.
Yep.
Um, there you
Yeah.
go.
There you go. All right. I kept this one. So one of our this one was recommended. This is Money for Couples. It's hosted by Ramit Sethi. It comes out think every Tuesday. I listen to it. It was recommended by Sam, who's no longer on the team, but she went across the pond, talking about moving abroad. She's over in England now, so we wish her the best. But she brought this up last year, and I think it's a good podcast. It goes deep. It's long. It's like an hour and a half, and each week they highlight a couple and they can be in very different financial situations. So people that are, $100,000 worth of credit card debt just scraping by to multimillionaires. But really, the host spends the time really talking to them about not necessarily how the psychology behind their decisions and how they're interacting with one another. So it's good if you are in a relationship and just it is interesting that we all bring our baggage to the table when we work with our spouse on these things, and he really spends a lot of time untangling things.
Is it an
Uh,
interview format?
yeah, interview style. Yep.
So it would probably be like a little bit like sitting in on one of our meetings with our clients, maybe.
Well, no, no,
No.
don't say it gets
I
really.
haven't listened to it, so just correct me.
Yeah, no, I mean it really, these are people in kind of dire straits,
Oh,
and
okay.
like there's a reason they're on this show. There's something
So
going
it's
wrong.
people in challenging money
Challenging,
circumstances.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
and challenging monies. But he's one of those proponents of why is everyone obsessed with owning a home? You can be
He's
financially successful with renting.
he's the
Um,
guy that's all about increase your earning potential, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. So before this podcast, he had I will make you, or I can make you rich, or I
I
will make
can
you rich. That was his book, and then his
yeah.
podcast. And now it's kind of evolved into this money for couples. So
I think his philosophy is like invest in yourself and
yeah,
um everybody has the potential to earn as much money as they want to earn. Like don't limit more of an abundance mentality, I think.
he totally has an abundance mentality, and that's what he kind of teaches. And he does get into some of the every podcast starts with like a look at the couple's finances. So their kind of their net worth statement essentially. And
Okay.
but he thinks about it in percentages from the perspective of like you should have guilt-free spending every month, and really focusing your spending on the things that'll bring you the most joy, and kind of eliminating the rest, especially if you have financial issues. So, I would say broad strokes, his philosophy is in line with kind of how we do work with clients. In that,
Yeah.
it's really important to understand where they're coming from, what's going on in their lives, and what their goals are and their values, and like then taking the money to kind of shift it in the areas that are important to them. So,
Hmm.
just they just seem to be at kind of the worst stage of their financial journeys when they show up on the show.
That's challenging. I have
Yeah.
definitely had financial planning conversations with people that get into really challenging financial circumstances.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because especially when it's like and a lot of times is very intertwined into like behaviors and like psychology and it's illogical. So
Right.
so that can be really difficult. It's like almost like therapy mixed in.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 So that's a lot there. So
What's this next one on the list? I've never seen this one.
no. Yeah. So I had to put it on here. It's a shameless plug for Finance for Physicians. We got that in there. So, I mean, you're already listening to it. So I assume you've already kind of, you're bought
Isn't that
in.
what we're doing right now?
Yeah. So that's good. But for our blog readers, I wanted to make sure we made everyone know that this was out there. And this is on our Wrenne Financial Planning blog. And so we publish content there about every 2 weeks. So if you're ever looking for more content, go there. I'll also, I don't think we'll get into it on this podcast, but we also have a few kid recommendations. So you should go over to the blog and check those out. A couple.
Well, can I summarize them in
Yeah,
one
yeah,
minute?
go for it.
They're basically, at least I recommended two of these.
Yeah,
Michael, I don't know the one Michael recommended, but I know the two I recommended are basically all the lessons in the books we just went through, but designed for kids and they're story focused. Or one of
yeah,
them's fable, but like they're basically two story books and they're very, very good. Like they're the best ones I've read. And they're small and probably relatively unknown books. But they're both fantastic. My kids have read both of them like multiple times. They got through them all.
yeah,
And like one of my kids read one of them multiple times. So it's basically they're the same themes that came out of the books we just talked about, but for kids. In fact,
right,
adults could read these and have good
right.
takeaways.
Or something. Yeah, so it's The Gold Quest by David Delisle.
Delisle.
Delisle, sorry. And Grandpa's Fortune Fables by Will Rainey. So those are the two books. And actually, I'll say the other one that Michael recommended, it's actually, I have it, or my kids have it. So it's, it's called Milton's The Money Savvy Pup. And it's written by a financial planner who has four young kids. And it just talks
Is
about,
it who's the author of that one?
it's Jamie. Oh, shoot. It's, sorry, the writing there is too Boss, I think. I'll include the links in the show
I think
notes.
I have met her
Yeah, I have
actually.
met her too.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Yeah.
She's yeah, so she's a financial planner.
Yeah.
I think I met her at FinCon, the
That's
conference.
where I met her too. Yeah. I bought her books for my
Nice.
kids. So yeah. So I mean that's the list. They're all up on our blog. I think is Daniel, do you have any books you'd recommend that didn't make the list or podcasts?
I had one as we were talking, now I've forgotten it. Um, shoot. You
Well,
tell
I
yours and
yeah, so I'll throw in Die with Zero by Bill I think it's Perkins. It's a good, it has a bit of a controversial title because, again, it's that whole flip side of the coin. We spent all this time talking about saving, and now we're telling people to spend all their money. But the book really isn't that. It's more of making sure you're spending to, essentially get the max out of your money during your lifetime. So that might be, and spend on the experiences, uh, regardless of the dollar amount, or maybe because of the dollar amount at the times where you can use it. So don't save all your money to travel when you're 80 years old and you can't really do it. You should spend it when you're in your 40s potentially. Or if you're thinking about gifting money to your kids when you die, maybe reevaluate whether they could use it, be able to use it more effectively while they were younger. Because, as we are dealing now with the great wealth transfer, you got a lot of 60-year-olds inheriting millions of dollars where maybe they could have used half, maybe it was only $500,000, but they could have used it when they were 40 to buy their house or what have you. So it's really being thoughtful about your money and spending it during your life to get the max, enjoyment, but also the max satisfaction from your money because you can't take it with you. So it's a pretty good read too.
yeah, that I haven't read that one, but I know the theme of it, and I agree 100% with the idea of at least considering it when
Mhm.
there's a lot of older people that I've worked with over the years, and they have in their mind this idea that they need to just continue to build the nest egg indefinitely of wealth.
Right.
And they're not really thinking about, they're like, oh yeah, and then I'll pass the remainder to either my children or in charity or whatever. And
Right.
so it's kind of a paradigm shift for them to think, well, oh, I can carve this out. It's plenty for the rest of my life. And then there's still X number of dollars. What if I were to do the things I was planning to do when I died while I'm still alive? And then you get the
Yeah,
enjoyment of all the things.
exactly. Yeah. So, controversial title, not really a controversial book from that perspective. And I really think we're seeing a lot more books coming out now, more about like how to spend money versus just how to save money. And that's one of the themes I think in some of the books that were on this list. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I remembered mine.
yay. Okay.
It's probably the furthest away from personal finance, but it's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's another old book. It's
Yeah.
1937.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep.
So it's like more of a philosophy mindset, so that you can getting your mindset and your philosophy right so that you can achieve independence and financial independence and you know, life satisfaction and that kind of thing. Um, of course, it ties in. It's not exactly about personal finance, but it totally ties into personal finance and um, a lot of the, at least the mindset themes overlap with some of the stuff that is in a lot of these other books.
Gotcha. Cool.
So themes, what you want to wrap up by summarizing some of these themes we've pulled out of these books because they're very, at first I was like, no, there's not a lot of overlap, but then that's not true. They're very
Yeah.
similar.
They are very similar. I think what I think is really kind of cool is you can tell as a team, we really value clarity and the ability to break down really complex topics into digestible human language because, everyone on the team has had lots of financial training and, I'm sure can go deep and get all wonky, but you can tell that the books that they really appreciated and even the podcast really emphasize the ability to talk in plain language and really relate these financial topics to people's real lives. So, I mean, I think it's kind of part of what we do and why we do it. But I think that is one theme I've noticed in a lot of these books and podcasts.
Yeah. A bunch of non-technical books, surprisingly
Yeah.
non-technical for a group of financial planners.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's also like a values focus in
Hmm.
them all, like
Totally.
values first focus,
Yeah.
like the whole like save or give first, um, and focus on wealth as opposed to getting rich and like incorporate your, die with zero so that you can utilize what's most important to you or appreciate or live out what's most important to you while you're still around.
Right.
I think those are some of the themes. And then getting rich slowly, that's another thing I
Right.
wrote down is
Yeah.
like it's not a
There's no magic formula in any of these books on like how to create wealth. If anything, it kind of really does lean into this idea that it's just, it's habitual. It's making these habits and just avoiding the big pitfalls. And eventually you'll get there. But it takes time and it takes dedication and not getting distracted.
right. And putting your money to work,
Right. Yes.
buying and holding,
Fine. Yeah.
not necessarily no shiny, avoid the
No
shiny
shiny object.
objects. Yeah, I mean it's not rocket science.
No.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah.
But the other thing is behavior focus. Like
Yes.
that's the hard part is
Hmm.
the um, putting it into action part.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
So,
Well,
great.
good stuff. Well, I think
Yeah.
that's a wrap. Thanks
I
for
think
coming
so. Of
on.
course. Good to be here.
No guests or clients appearing on the podcast received any form of compensation for their appearance and obtained no other benefit from us. It should not be assumed that every client has had the same experience.